But 92, we got the answer. We got UTF-8, which is supposed to be able to deal with any possible character set available, except, I believe, Klingon. But they're working on that. In order to get it to work in our environment, we have to be aware of the chain that LASSO deals with. And if we ensure that we have UTF-8 in every part of that chain, in every link of that chain, we will be in heaven, and we will have no problems whatsoever with encoding in our dreams. This is the first part of the chain. If you create a file to be used by LASSO, config file, HTML file, whatever, you have to set it to UTF-8. The databases and the tables that you create, you have to make sure that they have the correct character encoding. Anything in LASSO that offers you the possibility to choose an encoding, you choose UTF-8. And if you upload or download files, you have to make sure that they are treated in the correct way. LASSO will prefer to use UTF-8 in every instance, but it might not be that the file you actually are uploading is UTF-8, and it might be that the file that you want to users to download is supposed to be UTF-8, and you have to change the encoding for those. Let us start with files that we create. Well, here's the simple answer, and I'm dogmatic about this. Any file you create as UTF-8 with a byte watermark. Any file, regardless if it's to be treated by LASSO or not. There might be some old geeks here that say that, no, if you make an HTML file, the boom could interfere with the web browser. And I would respond to that honestly, if your files are viewed on Internet Explorer 5 on a Macintosh, do you think that the fact that the byte watermark will be visible is the greatest problem you have? It's not. If you don't use a boom, you will get encoding based on the platform that LASSO is on. Which means that if you sit at home developing on your Macintosh machines, you will get MacRoman. But when you send that file up to the LASSO server, and that is, for example, a CentOS machine or a Windows machine, it will be interpreted as ISO 8059.1 instead, Latin 1, which means that it will have a different encoding. So, save them as UTF-8 with a boom on your local computer, and they will be treated as such by LASSO on the server as well, and you will get a predictable result from it. That's the simple and non-negotiable truth when it comes to files you deal with yourself. Here's an example how I do it in BBEdit. I set it down here, or actually I have a setting in BBEdit, so any new file I create is created as UTF-8 with boom. It will look like this when it's done. But it could be that I'm getting files from other places. Someone sends me a file and it doesn't have a byte watermark, then I'd have to change that, or else I'll get surprises when I start using it. Any file. When it comes to databases and tables, I'm focusing on MySQL here in my presentation because that's what I know about. FileMaker, as I remember it from way back when, had good ways of dealing with this, so it wasn't really that much of an issue as I remember it. But on MySQL, you need to be aware of the character set used when you create the databases and the tables. And depending on in what language your your solutions is supposed to be used, you have to be aware of the collation setting as well. I'm showing that later. Again, of course, UTF-8. Here's an example of a table that I'm creating for this very demonstration. Here's a character field, a chart field. I'm setting it to UTF-8 Swedish. The entire table is set to the character set UTF-8 and also to be treated as Swedish if not stated otherwise. The key field up here that will contain, well, my key value, I'm setting that to UTF-8, but I'm not collating it as this. I'm collating it at UTF-8 bin because that will deal with, that will make searching and sorting dependent on if it's what do you call them, capital or
upper or lowercase.
Upper or lowercase, yeah, thank you. If it's upper or lowercase, it will differentiate between those two. So, that, unfortunately, in regards to the databases, is this the whole truth and nothing but the truth? So help me, mother? No, it's not. In the MySQL environment, there are drawbacks with UTF-8, and those are mainly size. Each character you save in a UTF-8 table will take up a little more space than if it was saved in a more specific character set. And size equals speed, so it will be a fraction of a millisecond slower for each transaction it's dealing with. Which means that if you have a table that you know never ever will contain anything but saved characters, or characters in a very specific character set, you could use that instead. If you're, for example, having a table with zip codes in the States, there's no risk that there ever will be a rack smorgasbord in there, right? It will be Wisconsin and Utah and other things like that. So then you can use a more limited character set. Also actually goes for if you, for example, would deal with the Chinese solution. UTF-8 would be the safe answer because it deals with Chinese. But if you know it's never ever going to be anything else than Chinese, then you can use a character set that's called Big 5 that only deals with Chinese and nothing else. And again, you will save some space and some tiny speed. I'm looking at him and he's having a different view of reality. I can see it. Is it true?
Well, I think what happens a lot of times is you think you're not going to need it, but then the Microsoft smart quotes show up and suddenly you do need it.
Yep.
Or the if you have zip codes in the United States, you don't need it. However, then suddenly you also want to go to Canada. And in Canada, you can have these French towns which then have the accent. I mean, you can obviously store non-accented town names for Quebec, but then all of a sudden now you need it again. And so you're in this predicament where you have to translate and move things around.
Yeah. So, anything I do is UTF-8, including the tables that I create. But I'm mentioning this just to show that I have a check, that I know what I'm talking about. If you have specific needs otherwise, and you know that there's never ever going to be any risk of anyone entering a smart quote or a shrimp sandwich, then go for it. But this is the safe solution. And its size in regards to database tables has never been an issue for me. I can't remember that I ever having to upgrade a solution or a hard drive because my databases grew too big. I could have to do it because I have too many images and stuff like that, but not the data itself. So I don't consider this an issue for me.